Welcome back to the best spot available. We're almost done with summer scouting. Today, we're doing tight ends. We've got one more position group coming your way at the end of the week on Friday, that being quarterbacks, of course. This tight end class, Ryan, it has three really interesting names. It's got a fourth guy that is very unique because he's not your typical tight end. And then it's got some pieces, some players that could be risers that have some good traits. The tight end class is kind of odd this year. I don't know if it's got the depth that we're looking for. And last year, the tight end class wasn't sexy, but it feels like it was a lot stronger than what we've got coming into this season.
Yeah, I think it was, was it Dane Brugler that had like 28 draftable grades for tight ends last year's class? Like it was like a bizarre number. Literally Dane was like, and I'm paraphrasing, I don't mean to put words in his mouth, but he said something to the degree of like, I think that was the strongest tight end class he's ever evaluated in terms of that depth that we're talking about. You're right, the top of the class wasn't flashy, it wasn't like super exciting, but it is a very polar opposite year because I would argue that like the top of this class is actually very interesting. Like I would be interested in a couple of these guys in the first round conversation, but after that, it really is about trying to find guys that can fit roles in a room, which is still valuable. It's not like invaluable or anything, but like you still do need to be a little bit creative. My one question I will ask you, Joe, before we really kick this off though.
Okay.
Can anyone in this class block? Can a single player in this class block? I don't know if there's a guy that can actually block in line in this class, which is just hilarious.
The funny thing about this, so there's this big jerk-off fest over 13 personnel. I probably shouldn't say that. Everybody's like, well, and it's even funnier that I say that because that's the other show that we do here at 13 personnel. It's turned into this like big, like everybody's like, 13 personnel, multiple tight ends. And if you're drafting back end of the draft a tight end, that guy is going to be the third tight end in your room. He better be able to block. The second guy that you're drafting also better be able to block. You're very rarely going to draft a tight end early. Or sorry, you're not going to draft a tight end late that you see as like a super dynamic receiving weapon. Those guys tend to go early. Very rarely will you see any of these move pieces go at the very end of the draft. Because those move pieces, if they go at the end of the draft, there's usually something wrong with them that affects them getting onto the field. So there's now an even bigger premium on blocking. So this class might kind of go through it. This year, before we get into these rankings, but I was really freaking hard when it came to blocking. If you're too damn high and you're not driving your legs and you're getting pushed off the ball, one of these guys got driven into the ground multiple times, which pissed me off. If you're not blocking, I'm not taking you seriously.
Well, here's the problem to your point, right? If you are a big-time pass game weapon at the top of the class, you're going to go early because you have dynamic, elite potential traits. Then there's the guys that are going to go early that are the well-rounded guys that bring something in line as blockers. The problem that you're talking about, Joe, is that when you're just like a pretty good receiving tight end, but you have zero value as a blocker, at some point, I'm saying, why wouldn't I just draft another slot receiver? Like, why am I drafting a slot tight end to do a job that a slot receiver can do if you bring a net negative or just nothing to the table as a blocker? So agree with you. I have one guy on this list that I was like, you know what? I'm putting him on this list because that dude gets after the run game. Like, I can see the vision in the situations you're talking about. But yes, a lot of flex tight ends, not a ton of true Ys in this class, in my opinion.
All right, let's get into the nitty-gritty of today's show. Let's start off with Trey'Dez Green, who you and I we have identical top fives, which kind of sucks. But I've got Trey'Dez Green at 1. You've got Trey'Dez Green at 1. As much as we just poo-pooed on the tight end class, there is an absolute alien, one of the most freakish tight end prospects that I've ever evaluated. Is it hyperbolic to say that Trey'Dez Green is Kyle Pitts? Like, is that an absurd thing to say with how fast and explosive he is? The only thing that comes down to it with Trey'Dez Green that we have to talk about, and I brought this up on the LSU preview, he is an oxymoron because he is the big basketball player tight end with an awful drop rate, 13.2%. Yeah. He's great in contested situations, which is even funnier, but I'd like for Trey'Dez Green to have more consistency catching the ball.
So in a crowd, he has great hands. Like him in one-on-ones, goal line fades, like all that type of stuff. He has great ball skills and hands. But then he'll drop just like a short mesh route where he's wide open for a run after catch opportunity. You're just like, Trey'Dez, come on, man. You got to keep the easy things easy. We always talk about the floor of prospects. What does a floor mean, Joe? It means that you make the routine look easy. There's too many guys that make routine things look hard, and that is not a baseline. That is not a floor prospect. That is a lack of a floor. Trey'Dez is a scary prospect in that way. But to your point, I don't think it's hyperbolic to say that he can be Pitts-esque, because I do think that he's probably not quite as fast as Kyle Pitts, but he is springier than Kyle Pitts, and he's more explosive than Kyle Pitts. So if he has the type of season that we think he can have, especially in Lane Kiffin's offense, then I feel great about the upside and potential here. I compared him to, and it was a stupid comparison, but I'm going to say it one more time. If Mike Evans decided that he wanted to play tight end instead of wide receiver early in his career coming out of Texas A&M, that's what Trey'Dez Green is. Like, because the most fun plays that I see from Trey'Dez are goal line fades, plays out of the slot, or the occasional time where they put him as a boundary receiver and they just tell him to run some vertically oriented and make a big play. Like, there are legitimate usage upside diversity on the table for a player like Trey'Dez Green, but you're right. You need to stabilize the floor because he's not bringing anything as a blocker. Like I understand there's efforts, but he can't block in line. Like he just can't do it. So if you are bringing nothing as a blocker, you need to strengthen your floor as a pass catcher, which means let's cut down on the drops because I don't think he has bad hands. I thought he had some concentration issues last year.
Yeah, I think that it shows that he's strong enough to make big plays in contested situations, that he has good hands. It's just needs some more consistency in that regard. Jamari Johnson continues this trend of elite tight end prospects coming out of Oregon, and now their offensive coordinators, their former tight end coach, which keep an eye on what that means for Jamari Johnson's production. He is the bigger version of what Kenyon Sadiq was, or I guess the better way to put that, Kenyon Sadiq was a little bit more compact F tight end. Jamari Johnson is more built to be a true inline tight end. Not a super reliable blocker. Doesn't have a lot of great lower body strength. Inconsistent pad level for me, but hands are reliable, 5.9% drop rate. Pretty smooth transitioner. Smooth mover for a guy who's around 260. Able to get to that top gear pretty quickly, and he's got that thick, filled out frame. I do feel as though that there is a path for him improving as a blocker and turning into someone who's just a mainstay in an offense who doesn't come off the field.
Yeah, I think there's bones there to be a good blocker. So I actually am like a little. I'm optimistic that his blocking is going to take a step forward because if you look back for 2024 when he was at Louisville, he was used a little bit more as like just a detached player. I do think at Oregon system last year, they asked him to play attached a lot with Kenyon Sadiq in the fold. So I thought that there were moments as a blocker for sure. He just needs to become more consistent with leg drive, with his hand placements, just body positioning, just those general coaching things. But like he has some natural tools where I think he could be a better blocker. I'll say this though, Joe. I think that he has been very miscategorized this offseason because I feel like a lot of people are kind of coining him as this high floor, low ceiling player. And I completely disagree. Like, I think that there is a legit ceiling to tap into with Johnson because I see some plays where he gets the ball in space and he has legit acceleration and long speed. Like, I think that this kid can run for his size. So I think now that he is the tight end one in this offense, and we started to see the rise that he had during the latter stages of the 2025 season. I mean, there were games where he was more productive than Sadiq. I think that there is still a legit ceiling to tap into, and I'm excited to see what he puts on film this year. I really am.
DJ Vonham, I think is how we believe that one's pronounced, the Iowa kid. Do we think it's Vonham?
I think it's not, but I forget how it's
Vonhamy. He's got an interesting name to try to pronounce. Regardless, the Iowa tight end has been pretty unheralded throughout this process. He is under-recognized originally, and then people started watching him, and the discourse started to build around him. He had a lot of like late production on the year. He does seem like if we were to categorize like, hey, these guys could be risers into first-round picks, he's one of those players. Angles and technique as a blocker is not super consistent, but the thing that I like about him Ryan, is his hands. You can count on those. He provides physicality, and his athleticism it sneaks up on you. Good long speed, good acceleration, pretty shifty to make guys miss as well. He has a real possibility to make some noise.
So he only had three receptions in the first 4 weeks of the season last year, and I was looking real quick because he only had 11 receptions, Joe, in the first 7 games. So in 7 games, he only had 11 receptions to start that year. And you started to see him down the stretch, especially the bowl game, obviously, of that usage really started to uptick because he was only a redshirt freshman last year. But this is what Iowa does. They find these Midwest talented athletes who are undersized coming out of high school that they need to put on a bunch of weight on them, and they develop into TJ Hawkinson or Noah Fant or Sam Laporta. Like they do this routinely. So I am in on DJ. Like I think that he has all the upside in the world as a pass game weapon. His acceleration and his overall just speed profile is fantastic. I'm interested to see how his route tree diversifies this year now that he's going to be a little bit more of that mainstay guy to start the year. The run blocking's weird because I think you think of Iowa tight end and that's just like a prerequisite. That's just something you expect. I didn't think he was a great blocker at all. Like I was just like, all right, he has efforts, but I just don't think it's there yet. I don't think he's strong enough yet. I think he needs to continue getting denser, stronger. Power profile needs to take a step forward. But that athlete, dude, as a redshirt sophomore, maybe he won't end up entering the 2027 NFL draft, but if he does, I am in if he takes a step forward from a power profile perspective because that kid is a freaky athlete.
Terrance Carter's kind of a funky guy to talk about. You and I both have him at 4 because he's built like a power back. 20 years ago, this is a fullback. He's playing fullback, and we're not even having this conversation, but in modern offenses, it gets a little wonky. I wonder how that translates to him with there's been this throwback approach, as we've talked about with 13 personnel, that in more tight end sets, like how does Terrance Carter contribute in the NFL? Is he going to just get converted to fullback? Is he going to be H-back, F tight end? Like, do they try to get him to play in line? Not a great blocker, inconsistent leg drive and technique was one thing that I noted, but he's pretty physical. He's pretty willing. I wonder if maybe he'd be better if he got a full head of steam and he was lining up in the backfield. But the things that I do like about him, he is really fluid. He moves really well. He's a hard runner when he's got the ball in his hands. His hands are also really reliable. He makes some really tough catches, which I really like. I don't really know how to classify him. And I wonder if he ends up sliding because that's just how the NFL works when they don't know how to classify him. And a team is going to need to be really specific with how they intend to use him.
So he's 6'2" and a quarter and 242 pounds. So he is a small dude. His comps are going to be easy though. This is Chigakonkwo. This is what was the tight end that's been with Arthur Smith everywhere he's basically gone. His name's escaping me for some reason at the moment. It'll come back to me in a second. I went to Florida International. He was the one that someone threw like boiling water on him coming out of college. Do you remember this? Do you remember this story?
No.
Oh, dude, who's the tight ends? Oh my gosh. Someone's in the comment section right now is like, how do you guys not remember this player who's been a good player in the NFL for some time? It's going to come back to me. Either way, he is going to go whenever Arthur Smith goes back to the NFL after getting his reclamation project with Ohio State. This is an Arthur Smith tight end. Like he is a no doubt Arthur Smith guy, or someone like Mike McDaniel or Kyle Shanahan or someone like that's going to draft him to be their F tight end in their offense as kind of this West Coast dude. Because the thing that you love about him, Joe, and which he's as good as just about anybody I've ever watched, he is crazy good after the catch, man. Like contact balance, explosiveness, navigating space. He's really good. He's not going to block anybody in terms of like displacement power, but he tries. He has efforts, but he just is too small. He doesn't have great length profile. He's just never going to be an inline guy. But as a guy that can move and make a lot of plays in space and kind of this West Coast-ish tight ends, I really do like a lot of what Terrance Carter brings to the game.
Yeah, he's unique, and it kind of gets hard to
Jonnu Smith. Jonnu Smith is who I was
okay,
thinking.
that was
Jonnu,
what my guess was going to be, but it sounded.
Yeah.
I didn't know that was something that he did. That's actually nuts.
Well, it was like I don't quote me on this one, but it was like an ex-girlfriend or something like that threw boiling water on him, so he got like disfigured for a little bit. Like his face was all burnt. Like he had like it was crazy.
Okay.
Crazy story.
Well, hopefully that doesn't happen to Terrance Carter. Brody Foley from Louisville was a guy who snuck up on me. He was at Tulsa, transferred over to Louisville. Yep. Knowing that this is a weapon in the Jeff Brom offense has me excited. Shocking. Another guy who can't block that well, so we're just going to move past that. But he's got the build, too. He's one of these guys that's just like built super thick and wide that I have a really good feeling that he ends up becoming a better blocker as time goes on. The things that are exciting about him, solid hands. He does a really good job of adjusting and going up and pulling the ball out of the air. He shows an ability. He's not like blazing fast, but he can break away and separate from defenders with the ball in his hand or as a deep route runner. There's something there with Brody Foley. If there's one player who, from the college landscape, maybe people don't know about, but by the end of the year, we're considering him for the Mackey Award, this is one dude who I would not be stunned if that came to fruition.
I mean, he was a sneaky transfer portal kid this offseason because Tulsa's offense was horrible, but Brody Foley was good. I mean, he had over 400 yards and a really bad passing offense. So he brings size to the field. I think he was listed up on the roster at like 6'6", 260. He's obviously not quite as big as that from like scouts perspective, but he's 6'5 plus, 250 something pounds. So like he's got a bigger frame. You know, athletically, what he reminds me of, Joe. I'm not saying he's going to be Hunter Henry, but like he gives me Hunter Henry vibes in terms of like he moves better than you probably think he does. Just kind of looking at him because he's just got kind of that higher cut type of frame, and he kind of has a leggy kind of approach as a route runner, but he glides through in and out of breaks. I think he moves well. I think he's got a big catch radius. He plucks the ball in the air. So I agree. I think that Brody Foley is a good player, man. He actually started his career at Indiana. I don't know if you knew that, but he's Indiana to Tulsa, now to Louisville guy. So I was actually I was like, oh man, maybe he'll go back to Indiana and he'll be with Kirk Cignetti for a year. But he decides to go with Jeff Brom, who's one of the best offensive minds in college football. So I'm excited to see what he's able to do now in the ACC.
You and I have Lawson Lucky our whole top sixes were the same, which is just so gross. I hate when this comes to fruition. Thankfully, I didn't get baited by this dude over here for trying to get me to watch. I always ask Ryan to send me some of his tight ends that he thinks I should spend time watching before I finalize my rankings.
Who?
And I got Ryan trying to get me to watch guys that have 200 yards receiving. The Texas kid, Michael Masunas.
Masunas? Oh, man, best blocker on the list, Michael Masunas. Blocker on the list, Joe.
That was the thing. I'm like watching him. I'm like, is he going to run any routes? Is he gonna do any of that? Yeah, he probably. You bring up a good point. He probably is the best blocker on this list, and I didn't put him on the list because I'm a hack. But
yes, I mean, dude, he's 259 pounds verified. He's going from now to Texas after playing at Michigan State last year. I understand that he's not a great athlete or anything. Like, he doesn't move exceptionally well. He's fine. Like, he's a serviceable athlete, but he gets after it in the run game, man. And we've seen this now, Joe. These guys that will come in and do the dirty work, they will find homes. So you literally led this opening by saying, like, man, if you're a receiving threat but you can't block at the tail end of the draft, you're probably not as valuable as you may have used to been. Well, this is the guy that it's like he's going to be a 5th or 6th or 7th round pick somewhere in that ballpark, and he's just going to make a roster for like 7 to 8 years. Like, that's going to happen. So, yeah, Masunas could play, man. He's a good player.
Well, and I think that kind of depicts what I'm getting at here is that there's just not a lot of good options that can either do one thing exceptionally well after we get past 6. I want to get back to Lawson Lucky, though.
Yeah.
He feels like he's one of the more well-rounded tight ends in this class. Lucky was a guy that you and I both were pretty high on in the preseason last year. He's not particularly big. If I have this right, he's listed at like 240, so he's not like a super thick dude. He has solid fluidity, I think is the best way to phrase him. He's not like an exceptional explosive athlete. He's also not like an overly dominant blocker. His impact is fine, but I do see a world where Lawson Lucky is a team's reliable tight end too, that you just know you can count on sticking on the team for an extended period of time.
So I was so excited about Lawson Lucky last season, Joe, because I thought he was going to just be like that next great Georgia tight end. Because I think he's very fluid. I think that he's a great route runner for a tight end. Like, I think he has really good acceleration in and out of breaks. So, like, I think there's a lot of upside for him as a pass game weapon. I don't know what's happened to Georgia the last couple years, but for whatever reason, they don't prioritize tight ends in the passing game like they once did. I mean, Oscar Delp barely got the ball thrown to him last year. Lawson Lucky's the same way. So Lucky is a smaller tight end, so he's not going to be a great inline player. That's why Oscar Delp did a lot of the attach stuff last season. But I like Lawson Lucky for if you want him to split out at times, if you want to move him around a ton. Like, I think that he still has pass game upside. I hope that Georgia prioritizes him a little more, especially because Georgia has some wide receiver question marks going into next season. So I'm hoping that they just target Lucky a lot more than they did a year ago.
Last guy that I just want to get to, or a call out to any of the guys that you think that we need to give some recognition to. The last guy that we actually had, we'll close out with him because you got to Masunis. Theo Mellon Orstrom, the kid who transferred from Texas A&M to SMU, who came from Sweden, is interesting. He was annoying to watch as well because he had a game where he had 3 catches and the rest of them were all games where he had 2 catches. So he
had like 19 receptions for like 160 something yards or something like that last year.
I was texting you about it. It pissed me off when you made me watch this guy. I'm like, this guy has no film of him as a receiver, and he's also not a good blocker. So there's nothing for me to get excited.
I think it was okay as a blocker.
He blocks like I'd expect a European to block. Like, he just doesn't.
What does that mean? What does that mean?
He doesn't know how to do it. He doesn't. He looks like he doesn't know how to do it. That's what I mean. Like, he looks like he didn't grow up playing football. Maybe he did grow up playing football in Sweden, but it looks like I'm watching a guy who is just now learning how to block, but he's bigger than everybody. So he can kind of move people, but he doesn't drive his legs, and he's way too freaking high. That's what I mean by that. He's still a very smooth and explosive athlete. And I see an upside for him, knowing that SMU has used tight ends a lot in their offenses, but no production and being a bad blocker was a real big non-starter for me.
I did not think he was that bad of a blocker. He plays detached a lot. That's why, like, Burkature, whatever his name was a little more of the inline guy, and they had number 88 that I think played more inline as well. 17, which is this young man, played a lot more as like a wing, H type of player. And I thought from that alignment, he was a fine blocker. I have no idea what it means to say that he blocks like he's from Germany or whatever the heck you just said.
No, I said he looks like exactly like how a European would block. And what I very specific, it has nothing to do with like intensity or how tough you are. Have you not been around like a European that's trying to get into football? Like, have you not? When I was in high school, we had a couple different kids that were like kids that transferred over from, they obviously weren't recruits or anything, but came from Europe, and they tried to play football, and they only lasted a week because it was too confusing for them and they didn't like it. I'm not saying that that's what Mellon Orstrom's problem is, but it looks like he doesn't know how to block. Like, he doesn't understand the concept. It just doesn't feel like, I feel like I'm watching a dude who thinks he understands how blocking works, if that makes sense.
I did not think the blocking was nearly as bad as you did. I would not say he's exemplary, but I thought that it was okay from his alignment. I just think that he's a really good athlete. And you know what? Right. You know what frustrated me the most when watching him, Joe? Marcel Reed is bad. Like, I just want to put that out in the universe. Marcel Reed is not a good quarterback, man. I don't care what the stats say. I don't care what Texas A&M fans want to comment in the comment section. Marcel Reed is not very good. There were so many plays where this kid was just open, dude. They were just open, and they just wouldn't get him the football. And part of that is you play with Casey Concepcion and Mario Craver, so, like, there's limited footballs to go around. I understand that, but I really am interested to see how he excels at SMU this year, because I think that he is going to get a lot more attention in that offense. And even if Kevin Jennings is also not a great quarterback, I trust him to be able to prioritize tight ends more than I do Marcel Reed.
That's a very fair point. That's going to be it from us on today's show. We've got quarterbacks coming up. That'll be interesting. That'll be an interesting conversation, I'm sure. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out. Hit the like button on this video. Comment your favorite tight end in this class. We'll talk to you later.